So today, Central Cee finally dropped his long-awaited album, Can't Rush Greatness, or CRG for short. Although there's a bunch of different vibes on this album, today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the main two sounds featured throughout the album. The first one being Centra's recognizable drill sound that he came up with and is known for to this day. Although in this album he does push this sound further, so we're going to be getting into that in the second half of the video. But first up, we're going to be taking a look at the more bouncy, introspective, melodic type of beats that Centr used in this album on songs such as CRG with Dave.
Now it's acres, I ain't even got neighbors.
40,000 square feet off of this pain. Look at me, I got heart acres.
And Gata featuring Young Miko.
Is it me or the GBP? I don't know if she really wants to see.
So without further ado, let's jump into FL Studio and make something similar. Alright, so I've got my headphones on, we're in FL Studio, and we've put the tempo to 130. One thing that I really liked from the CRG tune featuring Dave was the reverse piano.
On a date night, they try to imitate me.
I think that's something we're going to start with. But I bought this piano plugin a while ago. It's called Imagero Piano by the same company that made Autochroma. If you know what Autochroma is, super fire. Within this plugin is a reverse built in. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to find some chords. Okay, so I've come up with these chords, which I'm pretty sure follow a similar, or maybe even the same progression as CRG. So as you can see by the velocities down here and the way that the notes aren't just clicked in, I played them in on my trusty MIDI keyboard. Even if you could easily click them in, actually playing them in just makes your melody sound infinitely better. In terms of the effects for the piano, we've just got an EQ cutting out some of the lows. We've got Effect Rack on the Crystal Choir preset down super low. Just got, you know, vintage verb reverb. Now the CRG tune has sort of Brazilian funk influences, and I think I can hear like a vocal in the background. But yeah, so basically, I'm gonna get my girlfriend to come and go and do some I'll get back to you once we've done that. It all looks a bit crazy, but we've essentially got 4 different takes of her just going Pan 2 to the left, 2 to the right. Here's how that sounds. Right now, they don't make that much sense and they don't sound very good. However, I have a bit of an idea for where I want to take this now. So since I have an idea, I'm going to start to try and get a bit of a drum bounce down. And these sort of Afro, Brazilian, sort of funk-inspired beats, it's not really your standard trap drums. There's not going to be a spins 808 or a hit 1 hi-hat in here. There's going to be a lot of like stick noises, percussion noises, bongos, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Alright, so let me use this shot percussion element to get the main sort of Afro bounce down. Okay, so now the breaths are starting to make a little bit more sense. Let's go ahead, let's add a bass. Let me put you boys on this plugin. Repro 5 by UHE is the closest thing I've found to like a Prophet emulation. Now Prophet is a synth. The presets in here are crazy, but I've just pulled up basic bass 5, and here's how that sounds. So I've gone ahead, I found a couple bongos, which I'm going to add in here just to accentuate the bounce. And hopefully these 2 bongos, this one's a little bit deeper, and this one's a little bit lighter. Hopefully they can complement each other nicely. So as you can see, I've been panning the bongos here, panning them different ways. Just adds to the bounce. I'm going to mess with velocity a little bit as well, just kind of randomly. In these type of beats, since there's so many percussion elements, it's very important to be messing with the velocity, the panning, and you can even drag off a few of these notes just like this to give a little bit of swing to the drum bounce. We start off with the bongos and no bass, and then when the bass comes in, we take out the bongos to make room for the bass. So now that I showed you a lot how to make the main sort of Afro bounce, I'm going to find some little splice loops, because honestly for these type of beats, live drum loops, they don't have to be from Splice, you can somehow make them yourself or purchase them from other producers, but live drum loops just sound infinitely better, so I'm going to go find some. I found these 2 loops and I just pitched them both down, chopped this one up a little bit because there's some bits I didn't like, and in terms of effects I've literally added nothing on here, I've just panned it either side. I think it's almost done. I just want to add a little vocal to bring everything together. So I found this vocal, and this vocal as well. So with this vocal, I just chopped and reversed it, and then I kept this one as is, and this is how it sounds without effects. So they work, but they need to be put more in the background with a bit of reverb. So first off, we got this EQ, which instantly helps to put them in the background. It cuts out a lot of that high and low end. We've got a cluster flux. Now I've been using these Moog Fuga pedals a lot, and it just adds a bit of flanging. We've got this cluster delay as well, pan man, and then supermassive reverb. So with those effects on, the vocals fit much better into the beat. They fit seamlessly. Here's how that sounds. So now for this section, I've taken out the breaths. I'm adding in a stomp and a kick, which complement each other very nicely. With these type of beats, arrangement's very important. So what I did with this section is I have the piano at the start at a normal pitch, and then for this part it gets pitched down to add a bit of tension before we go into the drop. It gets pitched back up. And yeah boys, that's basically the whole beat. For these type of beats, you could realistically just get a whole drum bounce from Splice or Tracklib or Sampler or wherever, but I kind of wanted to show you guys some of the basic drum patterns for these type of beats, and I also wanted to show you that you can make your own sort of vocal breathy sounds pretty easily. But yeah man, anyway, on to the next part of the video. So now into part 2 of this video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the drill beats used on this album, and let's just take a listen to one of the first drill songs Central Cee ever released, Day in the Life.
Day in the life, let's see if you really trap. Turn off the auto-tune.
And now let's take a listen to a couple of the drill songs on this album.
If that's what you call romance, fake as it gets, say life's a gamble, I'm placing my... I wanna live a simplistic life, but that's unrealistic.
As you can hear, Central Cee has pushed and evolved his drill sound from then to now. So let's jump into FL Studio. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit more about how to make these modern drill beats like on CRG. Let's get into it. Alright boys, it's light now, it's the next morning. I've actually already made the starter. I'm gonna quickly break it down for you and then we're gonna build on top of it. So I started with this cool electric guitar melody which caught my ear from Splice. Here's how that sounds. So all I did was chop that up and then just pitch it up to come up with this. All I did after that was pull up Keyscape and add this piano progression which fit with the guitar chords very nicely. So it's essentially just 2 chords repeating. I believe it's a G minor and a B minor. But all I did was invert the chords a little bit. I think this is a suspended chord. But anyway, I just messed around until it was sounding good. In the second half here, to add some variation, I just arpeggiated the chord and added a little bit of melody. Then all I did was add this nice sub bass from Repro 5. I've really been loving this plugin. We used it for the bass in the last beat as well. So here's how that sounds. Next, I thought it needed some sort of ambient vocal, so I pulled up Pool Project. Shout out to Keon, I discovered this from him. It's actually from Labs, Oliver Patrice Pool Project. It's really cool for little vocal effects. All I did was copy the chords, and this is how the vocals sound dry. Sounding cool, but a little robotic, so all I went ahead and did is I added EQ, this wider plugin, which is actually free, just on 120% to make it super wide, kickstart to make it pulse, and then just a little reverb. With all of those effects, this is how it sounds now. And in context, so the vocals are tucked very subtly in the back, and then I just added my go-to pad, copying the exact same chords that I showed you guys before for the second half of the starter, which sounds like this. Now this starter, I ended up pitching it up to A sharp minor and just taking the pad part, leaving out the piano, also speeding up to 162. So here's how the starter's sounding now. Very similar to before, and this is the original vocal that I found from Carvey.
Please don't give up on me.
So it's sounding super fire, however I added my own little sauce to it. So all I did was I added an EQ cutting out lows, 2 EQs cutting out lows, and then Fab Filter on the vocal presence preset, a J37 stereo from Waves with the vocal female, little preset, a Valhalla delay, and a vintage verb. And that takes it from sounding like this to this. So yeah, it's not super noticeable, but it just adds a little bit of delay, fits it in better with the starter. And then what I did is I chopped up these little bits here and pitched them up as well, a whole octave. And that is just the exact same as this. It's actually the same mixer chain as in the previous beat, cutting out the vocals, cluster flux on the classic Fangin, cluster delay, pan man. It kind of almost acts as ambience, but it definitely adds a little bit of extra ear candy. Let's get into making the beat and doing the drums. So this might look a little confusing. All I've done is I've stemmed out the starter, slowed it down to 145 BPM, which is a more drill BPM, changed the pitch of it, and this is what we got for like the intro. And And then these chops down here are actually the piano from the very original starter we made before we put the vocals on. So yeah, that's basically what we've done. Let's get into the drums. So in a lot of these modern drill beats that Central Cee is using, rather than a snare or a clap, the producers opt for a rim shot. So that's what I've done here. I'm just going to put it down to get the main sort of bounce for the beat. And then next up, we got this hi-hat. So I'm just going to place it down on the standard drill pattern. And with these, you really want to mess with the velocity, and you can just keep it like this, but I'm going to opt to take away a few of the notes and just create a bit of a different, more chilled out bounce. So I think I like how the hi-hats are sounding now. We've got a little bit of a panning going on these lower notes here only, and then velocity, as you can see, is really random to create a lot of bounce. Next thing I think I want to move on to is 808, arguably the most important part of the beat. And for this one, I'm going to use a submarine 808. I think it'll fit nicely, so I'm just going to start drawing stuff in. This is sounding pretty hard. Let's add a kick on top of that. So with these type of beats, I like to space out my kicks a bit more. You want to add a real punchy kick as well. So here's how the kicks are sounding. And notice how the kicks are sort of bouncing off the 808. Sometimes they're playing the same time as the 808 hits. And then this kick isn't layered with the 808 and just plays by itself. I also use velocity in the kicks to build tension going into the next set of 4 bars. I notice a lot of the drill beats in CRG have the kicks layered with like a stomp or a snuff perk. So I've gone with this snuff perk here. I'm just going to layer the kick with this. Now this is the main bounce down. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a few little perks. I'm going to start off with this OVO perk from the free Segway and Ryan kit. Go cop that, link in the description. Another common theme in these beats is the log drum. As kind of like an extra bouncy 808, kind of like the grime 808s back in the day, but yeah, I've added some of these in, and with these log drums, what I like to do is I like to pan them, as you can see down here, and mess with the velocity just a little bit. So here's how the log drum sounded. Now when the log drum is playing, I like to cut out the bass. If I pitch them up a bit, I wouldn't have to, but there's still quite a lot of bass in these notes, so I opt to just cut the bass out. Now at the end here, I just dragged in a spin and did the reverse technique that they used in The Box by Roddy Ricch. Now if you don't know how to do this, all you have to do is you have to make a normal note like this. You can go up here to whichever step you want. I normally choose 16, press Ctrl U, and then you just drag it down like that, and it adds a cool reversed 808 effect. So I've done that at the end of every 8 bars. I think it sounds pretty good. Now sexy drill was a big thing this year, and the 808 used for sexy drill is very distinct. It's like this. Now this isn't the exact one, but it's very similar, and I've used this to give a bit of bounce at the end of the 8 bars just here, and I've also layered that with the cash stomp kick, and that sounds like this. However, that can get kind of repetitive, so I made a separate pattern, and I've got this different ending which sounds like this. Now I wanted to spice up the beat with something a little bit unique, and the way I decided to do that was with a Vox. Now this is a Vox from Ace Cash, from Nathan's drum kit from a while ago, and producers such as Nathan and other, new jazz and drill producers have been using a lot of Voxes in their beats recently to add bounce. So that's what I decided to do here, and that's how it sounds. And once again, I just used the same preset that I've been showing you guys for my ambient vocals. If you want that, I'm gonna leave the link to it in the description. I just changed it a little bit. I added this tilt shift to make it thinner, did a bit more of an intense EQ, and used a different delay. And that's basically the whole beat. It's kind of inspired by all of the drill tracks on the Central Cee album. It kind of blends the genres just like Central Cee has been doing. It kind of blends the sexy drill, the emotional sample drill, and then just your standard aggressive OG sort of drill. So there we go, that's the final beat done. Hopefully you guys got some tips and tricks in this video. I want to know what you're all thinking of the Cinch album, CRG. Go ahead, put in the comments what you're rating it, any pros, any cons, what tracks you like, what tracks you didn't. If you think it's going to stay in your rotation, I'm actually interested to hear how it's being received. And while you're down there leaving a comment, you might as well like and subscribe to the video as well. Follow me on Instagram. I'm always sending out loops, placement opportunities, everything. So yeah, make sure you go and do that. But for now, I'm out. I appreciate you guys watching the video, and tap in with the next one in a bit, lads.